For more, Chong Jia-Ian, Associate Professor of Political Science at National University of Singapore, joins us. Thank you for making the time, Professor. Now, these 5 designated zones around Taiwan, how significant are they in terms of controlling key ports and airspace?
They are indicative of what the PRC could do in terms of trying to close off airspace and ports. But to be indicative and to actually carry out an operation, there's still some gap in between. A lot of what the PRC is trying to do is to show that they are able to block off Taiwan and to create pressure, and the external sort of propagation of this information and the drawing of the zones, those very huge areas, intend to show it's a show of force. It's a show that the PRC can do a lot of things. Whether it can pull that off effectively or not, that's a different story. But it's definitely a sort of threat, if you will.
That's right. And Taiwan has already warned of such large-scale drills. Does this suggest that Beijing is deliberately dialing up the pressure as part of its long-term strategy?
So the PRC has been conducting drills around Taiwan. I think the reaction here is because it seems somewhat sudden to the outside world. But as you know, the Taiwan intelligence had said that this would happen, and the PRC has been conducting drills in many places. They've conducted drills in the South China Sea, off of Japan. There was that lock-on incident not too long ago with the Japanese. They've conducted live-fire drills in the international waters off of Sydney. They do what they want because they can.
And this recent development comes after Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's comments on Taiwan. So how could they affect ties between Beijing and Tokyo? Will we see further strain?
So I think there will be further strain. The PRC is looking for a reason to justify its continued pressure on Taiwan. I mean, if you look at Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi Sanae's comments, they were about how a hypothetical conflict over Taiwan could affect Japan's survival. And if you look at the way where the areas where submarine cables run, where maritime trade routes, air routes to Japan run, they run on either side of Taiwan. So any instability or any domination of Taiwan could put Japan under pressure. So in some respects, if anyone looks at a map, right, it's pretty clear where the Japanese are coming from. But I think the Beijing side has tried to seize on this to add more pressure, to try to get more momentum behind the efforts to put pressure on and control over Taiwan.
Yes, Professor, you talked about gaining momentum to exert control over Taiwan. So how do these drills fit into Beijing's current pattern of pressure on Taiwan in 2025? And do they suggest that Beijing could perhaps be testing regional reactions, you think?
Right. So the drills do several things. One, of course, is to show that Beijing can at any time put military pressure. But of course, these drills are unopposed, right? There's these the scenarios that are put up. Now, what's also interesting is that every time Beijing does these drills, it also makes people on Taiwan, and also for that matter, people in Japan, more wary of the PRC. So in some respects, it has a counter reaction. Now, I suppose what Beijing is also trying to do is to signal to the rest of the region to try to gather what their responses are. So far, apart from Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, to a lesser degree South Korea, the rest of the regional actors seem to be quite cowed. They seem to be quite silent. So for Beijing, I suppose that suggests an ability to put more pressure, even though they may not be getting the kinds of domestic reactions in places like Taiwan and Japan that they want.
And just one last question. How will these drills affect regional stability, especially for nearby countries like Japan, as well as key shipping routes in the region?
So the drills themselves don't. But what they do indicate is that the PRC can, if they want to, disrupt shipping submarine cables, air routes. So by extension, the PRC can be very disruptive. It is trying perhaps to signal to, other actors in the region that, if they do not listen to Beijing, they could end up bearing quite a lot of cost. But of course, the fact that others are silent also means that it's easier for Beijing to carry off these sorts of activities. So there's a little bit of more thinking that needs to be required in terms of showing the unacceptability of the use of force, if that is what regional states really want. If not, then that just signals that Beijing can push further in this direction.
Thank you very much for that insight. That was Chongjia Ian, Associate Professor of Political Science at the National University of Singapore.